We have paper 2 of economics, October 2021. The first question, the table shows the real GDP growth rate and unemployment rate for the USA for Q1 and Q2 in 2020. So which one of the following is most likely to have caused the increase in the unemployment rate between Q1 2020 and Q2 2020? For real wage unemployment, it's not real wage unemployment because we don't have a figure for real wage here. So it's not, we don't have any data to show real wage, so it's not real wage. Demand deficient unemployment, yes, that's the answer. Why do we choose demand deficient unemployment? Demand deficient unemployment occurs when aggregate demand within the economy falls. That's what demand or deficient unemployment means. So that's the answer anyway. Then we go to C. Because if demand within the economy falls, it's going to affect the real GDP within the economy, and to bring about an increase in unemployment rate. Get the point? We're going to have a negative GDP and an increase in unemployment rate because aggregate demand is aggregate demand is the total number of goods or services that consumers are willing to the total demand within the economy. So if total demand within the economy falls, it is expected that unemployment within the economy would increase. That is demand deficiency. Structural unemployment, it's not structural here because we're talking about a short term, which is Q1 of 2020 to Q2 of 2020. It's just within a short period of time. So it can't be structural. Structural should be long term. And seasonal unemployment, it's not seasonal here because it's about Q1 and Q2. So the answer is B. Question 2. In June 2020, the Bank of England increased the value of its asset purchase scheme, that's quantitative easing, by £100 billion. Which one of the following correctly describes this economic policy? This is an instrument policy, which is monetary policy. So C and D are already out because they are fiscal policy. And fiscal policy is the use of taxes, government spending, or borrowing to improve or to correct market failure or to increase aggregate demand or to achieve market. Why is it? It's reflationary monetary policy because it simply talks about adding value to the money. So it expands it. If it is deflationary, it contracts. So it is A. Question 3. From Q1 2020 to Q2 2020, government expenditure in Russia increased by 25 billion rubles. Ceteris paribus, all things being equal. What was the most likely effect of this increase? Here they said an increase in government expenditure will decrease aggregate demand. No, it will increase aggregate demand. So it is not A. Withdrawals from the circular flow increase. An increase in government expenditure would bring about injection, not withdrawals. So it is not B. Aggregate supply will decrease. No, aggregate demand and aggregate supply is expected to increase with government spending because it means government spending is like subsidy, and subsidy reduces the cost of production and reduces the price of goods. So both aggregate demand and aggregate supply are expected to rise or to increase with government spending. So it is not C. Injection into the circular flow increased. Yeah, that's D. The answer is D. Because an increase in government spending will increase spending for consumers too. And that will bring about injections. So the answer is D. Question 4. Are you there? So we have this. They said the chart shows a monthly balance of trade in US dollars from June 2019 to May 2020. So we have a negative trade balance between January 2020 and February 2020. Now they said, which one of the following can be deduced from the chart? China had a current account deficit in August 2019. No, in August 2019, it has a surplus. China balance of trade surplus remained the same from January to February 2020. In January 2020, it was deficit, and February, it was both of them are deficit, no surplus, so it's not B. China's balance of trade surplus increased from April to May. From April to May, it's increased from 45.34 to 62.93. So the answer is C. And the value of China export decreased from February to March. No, it never decreases, it increases because it's surplus. So the answer is C. Question 5. Which one of the following is most likely to result in an increase in investment? Investment is the spending on capital goods. So an increase in investment will bring about an increase in the rate of corporation tax. If corporation tax increases, it will reduce investment because investment will become less profitable. So it is not A. An increase in rate of tax relief for investment. Yeah, when you talk about tax relief, It could be tax break on investment. Yeah. And the government is giving tax break on investment. It encourages more firms to invest further. So the answer is B. C, an increase in central bank's interest rate. An increase in interest rate makes the price of borrowing to be expensive, and it will make investment through financing to borrowing be expensive. So investment will not increase. An increase in commercial bank reserve assets. If commercial bank starts reserving assets, it simply means money supply would reduce, and as a result of that, the price of borrowing would also be expensive because money supply would reduce. So the answer is B. Question 6. The table shows the GDP and population for India and Pakistan in 2019. Which one of the following can be deduced from the table? So the GDP per capita so here, the GDP per capita for Pakistan is 1357.07. We don't have it. That's for Pakistan. It's not India. And the GDP per capita for India is 1887.76. How do we get that? GDP divided by total population, that's 2,590 divided by 1.372 for India, 278.2 divided by 0.205 for Pakistan. So the answer here is Indian, 1887.76. And that is C for question 6. For question 7, are you there? Yes. So the chart shows the unemployment rate in Jamaica between 2013 and 2020. So with reference to the chart, explain one likely impact of the trend in the unemployment rate on Jamaica's economy. First, what is unemployment rate? Unemployment rate is the number of unemployed people divided by the total number of workforce or labor force multiplied by 100. Or you can divide it according to the ILO, which is the total number of people who are actively looking for a job for the last 4 weeks and are willing to work for the next 2 weeks if one is available. That you can divide it that way. So according to the chart, the unemployment rate fell by 7.3%. How? From 15.3% in 2013 to 8.0 in 2020. So that's 7.3% decrease or fall in unemployment rate. So this is likely to increase average income in Jamaica, which will in turn increase aggregate demand in the country. And that's the point anyway. But I wrote another point. It may also bring about a fall in government spending on unemployment benefit. And if government spending on unemployment benefit falls, no one will be able to spend on other strategic areas within the economy, such as education and healthcare. That's question 7. Question 8 now. In Australia, the consumer confidence index fell from 91.9 in March 2020 to 75.6 in April 2020. A consumer confidence index score below 100 indicates that on average, also think that economic conditions would worsen. Draw a long-run aggregate supply and the aggregate demand curve to show the possible impact of this change in consumer confidence on the average price level and real output level in Australia. So the point here is, if consumer confidence fall, it means consumers become pessimistic about the future. So as a result of that, it reduces their consumption. Yes. So it is expected that the long run, the aggregate demand will shift leftward from AD1 to AD2, and that will bring about a fall in the price level from P1 to P2, and the income of the real output level will remain the same according to the classical economist. So we can simply draw it here. Let me see if I can here. So let's see. I'm graphically drawn like this. We have the long run aggregate supply, long run aggregate supply mandate. We have Y1. We have can you just behave yourself, please? P2. The aggregate demand curve, AD1 and AD2. So that's how the graph will look like. So go to question 9. Question 9. So they said,
Shall we?
hold on, please. Now, question 9. In April 2020, it was estimated that an increase in government spending of 30 billion RM in Malaysia would eventually result in an increase in the country's national income of RM 150 billion. Based on this information, calculate the marginal propensity to consume in Malaysia. Show your working. So when we are calculating the marginal propensity to consume, first, this is an injection. An injection will bring about the multiplier. Do you understand? So that means as soon as we calculate our MPC, we have to calculate our multiplier. So for marginal propensity to consume, it is so MPC, marginal propensity to consume is change in consumption over change in income. Then our multiplier equals 1 over 1 minus MPC. So based on what we have our MPC here to be, MPC is change in consumption, which is government spending, which is 30, divided by government national income, which is 150, and that gives us 1 over 5. So to be 1 divided by 1 over 5, which is 1 multiplied by 0.8 as 0.8 as reciprocal. So we have 0.8. I think it's clear. So that's about that. That's multiplier. Go to question 10. Is it clear now, please?
Yes.
So go to question 10. Take this question 9, please. Question 10. In quarter 1, 2019, Brazil's output gap was estimated to be equal to minus 5.6% of GDP. Explain one likely impact of a negative output gap on Brazil economy. When talking about negative output gaps, occurs when the actual GDP is less than the potential GDP. That is negative output gap. And for positive output gap, it means the actual GDP is greater than the potential GDP. Both of them will bring about, both of them are not good situation because it might bring about inflation and other economic decline. So a negative output gap may bring about the following. The consequences of negative output gap are: 1, it will bring about unemployment, it will bring about low taxation, it will bring about disinflation. So I'm going to take one. We are supposed to explain only one. So I'm going to explain the 3 anyway. For unemployment, a negative output gap simply means there are unemployed resources. So which means the PPC of that economy, Brazil economy is operating inside the PPF. So, and if Brazil economy is operating inside the PPF, it simply means there are unused resources. And unused resources is equivalent to an unemployment. You get that? Low taxation. It could bring about low taxation because a lot of people do not have job. And because they don't have job, income taxes would fall. Aside that, corporate tax might also fall because firms will not be making income or revenue as they used to make because a lot of people are out of job. And also disinflation. A negative output gap will bring about disinflation because aggregate demand is expected to fall. And if aggregate demand continues to fall, demand pull inflation is expected to reduce. And that will bring about disinflation. Is it clear? Last question 10. Question 11. We have a chart here. With reference to the data, explain the difference between disinflation and deflation. When you talk about disinflation is a fall in the rate of inflation, and it is positive. It has to be positive. If it comes negative, it becomes deflation. Yeah. And what is deflation? So here we have, based on the case study, for example, the inflation rate fell from 2.20 to 1.9 in August 2019. Look at, based on what we have here, in August 2019, we have 1.9, but from July to August, it was from 2.0 to 1.9. That is a positive fall in inflation rate, which is disinflation. Can you just stop now and focus here, please? Then we have deflation. Deflation is a persistent fall in the general price level of goods and services in a given economy. For example, Canada had a negative inflation rate in April 2020, which was around is minus 0.2, April minus 0.2. So that is a negative inflation rate is called deflation. A positive inflation rate will bring about disinflation. That's the difference. I think question 11 is clear. Go to question 12.
Okay.
Define the term recession. Recession is a fall in the GDP of a country for 2 consecutive quarters. So we go to question B.
Do you give analysis of from the book or no? From the case study?
Yeah.
That's what goes on.
Yeah. So we go to B. With reference to figure 2, explain how the CPI inflation rate is calculated. When we talk about CPI, we're talking about the consumer price index, and it is used to calculate the weighted basket of goods and services within an economy. So what are the uses of CPI? We could use CPI to measure the difference between what we consume, what household consumes this year, the base year, with the subsequent year. So also I wrote, with reference to figure 2, we have the figure 2. Services have the highest weight of 48.7. Let me just go back to the figure 2 so that we can see it. With figure 2. Yeah, with figure 2, here we have it. The consumer price index is here. The weight and annual percentage price is there. So the service sector had the highest weighted average, which is 48.9, is already here in the case study, 48.9. So I wrote that. CPI can also be used to survey for monthly price change. That means you want to know how much price has changed over time. You can use CPI to also calculate the annual household spending within the year. So, and the formula is always the current year divided by the base year multiplied by 100. I think that is clear. We'll go to question 12C. Okay. It said with reference to figure 3 and extract A, examine 2 likely effects of the French economy to the trend in the inflation rate. So go back to figure 3. Figure 3. Yeah, the figure 3. So we have the CPI inflation rate, the trend is there. So first, what is inflation rate? Inflation rate is the annual rate, the annual change, the annual percentage change in the price level of a given economy, like France. So extract A, we have the extract A. Based on the extract A, it shows that the inflation rate was 1.5%. Is in the extract already. The inflation rate is 1.5%. It's here in the third line. Now it's 1.5%. It's in the third line here. So I wrote that extract A shows that the inflation rate was 1.5%. This is a positive inflation rate, which is disinflation. Now, what are the consequences of disinflation? The following are the impact of disinflation on the French economy. 1, it increases investment. Why would disinflation increase investment? It increases investment because the amount spent on capital goods would have reduced. And firms would have that confidence to spend more because the price level, they can as well determine what the price level will be. The point is this. With disinflation, a fall in the inflation rate, it increases or boosts consumer confidence. And if consumer confidence increases, they are optimistic about the future. That might allow them to spend more on capital goods. Why would they want to spend more on capital goods? They want to spend more on capital goods because they will still be making profit because disinflation is still profitable. That is how it increases investment. Do you get that? 2, it may improve the trade balance as the price of export from France may rise slowly relative to other countries. With disinflation, the price of export will still rise slowly when you compare it with other countries. So whoever are the competitors of France that are having more inflation. So we go to 12D. Are you there? So we're going to go back to 12D. Okay, with reference to extract A, analyze the likely effect of France trade balance in April 2020 on the circular flow of income. When we talk about circular flow of income, it's the model showing the flow of money between households and firms within an economy. That's circular flow of income. So now, then you have to divide trade balance. You can divide trade balance as export minus import, X minus M. That's trade balance. And you can say it implies to the value of export minus import. Whatever way you say it, it's still right. So according to extract A, France was running a trade deficit of 5 billion euros in April 2020. This can be considered as a net withdrawal because the deficit.
Yeah.
And trade deficit means more import. And if import continues in the circular flow, it is a withdrawal, right? Great. So the trade deficit might be as a result of the value of export falling by 32.4% to 23.7 billion euros. You wrote that also in your question. So this will be, okay, that's 12D. And that's all I wrote anyway, because 6 marker. Yes, 6 marker, yeah. So go to 12E. Where's my 12E? Okay. Question 12E. So with reference to extract A and your own knowledge, discuss the likely effects of ECB's monetary policy on the French economy. First, what is monetary policy? Monetary policy is the use of interest rate, money supply to achieve macroeconomic objectives. And it is an instrument policy used by the central bank of a country like ECB. So the ECB monetary policy is to ensure interest rate is kept low. That is the case study. And then also to expand its asset by purchasing, by using quantitative easing to buy assets worth of 600 billion euros in June 2020. And it also buy, I think, 500 billion in, is it August or what? I know it was
600 billion.
It's 600 billion in June. And it also buy
500 billion
500
in December.
billion. Yeah. So I know that's quantitative easing anyway. So now a low interest rate, which is the bone of contention. A low interest rate will bring about the following: one, increasing aggregate demand. And if aggregate demand is increasing, it is expected that, why is aggregate demand increasing? Aggregate demand is increasing because with a low interest rate, what is interest rate itself? Interest rate is the price of money, which means the price of borrowing or saving money. So a low interest rate will mean that the cost of borrowing or the price of borrowing reduces. And if the price of borrowing reduces, it makes borrowing to become cheaper. Consumers will be able to borrow more to spend on durables. That is why aggregate demand is increasing. So that's the first point about aggregate demand increasing. Another point about aggregate demand increasing is that a low interest rate will reduce the cost of borrowing for firms. And if the cost of borrowing for firms reduces, it means firms will be able to lend or to borrow more money to buy capital goods, which is also aggregate demand. So aggregate demand is also expected to rise, to shift right towards on that point. So because it becomes more profitable for them to borrow for investment. And the third one, a low interest rate will bring about a low exchange rate. Why? Because a fall in interest rate means there's money supply. The demand for money will be less than the supply of money. So the supply of money will increase within the economy. So that reduces the price of exports within the economy. So a low interest rate will bring about a low exchange rate as the supply of euro will be more than its demand. This will in turn increase exports. I think the point is clear. So now we need to talk about quantitative easing. You don't only talk about interest rate because the ECB used interest rate and quantitative easing. So for quantitative easing, I wrote. Also, quantitative easing will allow ECB give money to commercial banks in exchange for their financial assets. This will in turn increase money supply within the economy. So an increase in aggregate demand can graphically be represented as this graph here. So aggregate demand will shift rightward and the price level is expected to rise. Is it clear? So go to question 13. Okay, thank you. Question 13. So they said we're doing question 13. So from 2009 to 2019, the value of Cambodia's currency significantly increased. That means there's a rise in the exchange rate of Cambodia's currency. Over the same period, its balance of trade deficit increased by 1.6% of GDP to 8.8% of GDP. So here, the consequence, the situation here is that because there's an increase in exchange rate, it would have meant that Cambodia's export has reduced over time and its import has increased over time. So those are the two factors we need to talk about. So exchange rate first is the value of a country's currency in respect to other countries' currency. According to the case study, the Cambodian currency increased significantly. This will bring about the following one. It will have impact on both imports and exports. So we're going to talk about import first. Import, what is import? The goods purchased from foreign customers, from foreign businesses, that's import. So a rise in the exchange rate of Cambodia will bring about a fall in the value of imports. That makes imports to become cheaper. So this makes imports to become cheaper. As a result, residents in Cambodia, that's people that stay in Cambodia, may be able to spend more on imported goods and services. And if they are able to spend more on imported goods and services, what will happen? This may in turn bring about a worsening balance of trade current account. On export, what is export? Exports are goods that are sold to foreign customers. So a rise in the exchange rate will increase the price of exports from Cambodia. This will bring about a fall in the value of exportation. So from Cambodia, as export reduces in Cambodia, firms that rely on exportation will witness a fall in their revenue. So if there is a fall in their revenue, they would not have any other choice than to lay off workers. So unemployment is expected to increase in Cambodia as a result of that, especially in the export industry. So as import exceeds exports in Cambodia, the balance of payments may worsen. I think the point is clear. But this import and export is not only determined by exchange rate. There are other factors that determine exchange rate, like non-pricing factor, like the quality of goods and services, like the elasticity, elasticity of demand, or elasticity of imports, or elasticity of exports.
So what about their trade partners?
Yeah, their trade partner. Yes, their trade partner is also a factor. But when you talk about their trade partner, you could talk about the economic situation, the state of the economy, are other factors that could determine imports and exports. So here, however, there are other factors that determine trade, such as level of restriction. Also, level of restriction. If there is restriction, maybe tariffs, quota, or ban, embargo. This might also affect trade relationship, not only exchange rate. So I think that ends paper 2 of 2021, October, November. Thank you. Hold on, please.
Mr. Do you mind if you